Welcome back to the Latam MedTech Leaders Podcast. Today, our guests are Bjorn von Siemens and Andrés Herrero. Hey, Andrés and Bjorn, great to have you here in the show today. Thank you for joining our podcast.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank
Excellent.
you for the invitation.
Awesome, guys. Bjorn is co-founder of Caresyntax, a German company that has become the leading developer of surgical intelligence technologies. Today, their technologies are used in more than 8,000 operating rooms worldwide and supports surgical teams in over 13 million procedures per year. Recently, Caresyntax announced the free rollout of its software to enable hospitals to better manage critical care capacities during the COVID-19 pandemic. Bjorn completed his B.Sc at the European Business School in Oestrich-Winkel before joining the London School of Economics for his master's degree. He conducted several years of postgraduate research at Harvard University and the University of St. Gallen. Andrés is Caresyntax Executive Vice President and General Manager for Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Andrés has extensive experience in international sales and occupied leadership positions for i2medi, St. Jude Medical, Biotronic, and other companies in the medical space. So, listeners, we are here ready for a treat. I'm sure this is going to be quite a conversation. We're going to get a lot from the experience of these two guests that we have today. And this is the first time in our podcast that we have two guests at the same time. So it's going to be a very animated conversation. All right, guys, let's get started. Let's talk about your journey to Latin America, your personal journey. How do you guys get involved with the region?
Should I start, Andrés?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Please.
Okay. So, mi nombre es Bjorn. Yo hablo español.
Excellent. Awesome.
So my journey to Latin America starts in my very early youth, but it was from our living room in Berlin because my parents did a lot of travel to Latin America. They love the continent, both Middle and Latin America. So they went to Mexico, to Chile, Peru, Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil. And so I saw a lot of videos and pictures and things like that in my youth. And then after graduating from high school, back then in Germany, we still had the mandatory military service, but instead of that, you can do a social year. So I did a social year abroad in Mexico. So I was in Guanajuato for about 14 months, working in a school and in a kindergarten as a German teacher and an art teacher. And so still have a lot of connections there, actually, with the families that I stayed with and was working with. And so, deep relationship with Mexico, but also I had an opportunity during my studies to go to Buenos Aires, to Argentina, for 3-4 months. And so, I love to work on the continent, like to be connected to it. And now with my work and with our work at Caresyntax, we had the pleasure of, from the beginning, actually, from our start in 2013-14, to supply our technology to Mexico, Colombia, even a little bit sometimes Argentina or Chile in smaller quantities and in smaller projects. But really excited to be on this podcast and really excited to also with my colleague Andrés, somebody on board who can actually help us navigate and help us greatly navigate that space.
Thank you, Andrés. All right, Andrés, let's get
started. As you hear, my name is Andrés, as was indicated. I have this very typical German name, Andrés Herrero Iraola. So that also explains already the ties that I have to Latin America. My father was Cuban. My grandfather was Spanish, who emigrated to Cuba, and my father had to leave due to political reasons the country again, but was always connected. I have a lot of family over in Latin America, and of course, due to these ties and my Spanish, German companies and afterwards also American companies made me work for them in Latin America. And that's why I have experience in that market, and it was always my favorite area to work with. apart, of course, from the European area that I'm also living and I'm at home here. So that's my ties that brought me to Latin America, and that I had the chance to, together with the Bjorn and Caresyntax, to develop our business in Latin America is a fascinating task, and it's a very good task. And yeah, we're looking forward to the conversation.
Excellent. Thank you guys for that introduction or that explanation of your personal journey to the region. So let's talk about trends in Latin America. What do you guys see from your perspective happening in the region in terms of political, economical, epidemiological, social trends that are beneficial and relevant to our discussion and beneficial for the medical device business?
Sure.
Bjorn, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start from the macro level.
Yes.
And you can join in. So I think my view on the region is that there's going to be a lot of dynamic development, a lot of growth, especially in terms of digital solutions. So as we know, there's a possibility through digital solutions to increase the efficiency and the quality of care greatly. And I think a lot of the countries, even if they are in infrastructure not as far developed as Europe or the United States or Japan, and they will use digital healthcare to kind of leapfrog and get ahead of the curve and make healthcare accessible without compromising efficiency and quality. So all these technologies, 5G, smartphones, etc., they have a lot of growth potential also in healthcare. On the other hand, we also see an increased aging population. So in Brazil,
Yes.
there's over 8.5 million people over the age of 70. And in 2050, this will grow by over 300% to 36 million, which is, half of the size of Germany and a mid-sized country. And in Mexico and in other larger countries, and the trend is similar. So I think there will be a lot of dynamic development in digital healthcare, and we're excited to be part of that.
So Andres, what do you see happening in Latin America?
Yeah, and I think in particular, if we look into different, let's say, into the different segments, many years ago, there was a big difference in terms of technologies that have been applied in Latin America versus the other countries. Yeah, if we think, for example, in histories of cardioverter, defibrillator, this was something that was used very much in the United States, and we had a very few, let's say, or very little therapy adoption in Latin America. Today, a lot of the doctors have been educated in the United States. They have been influenced significantly by that market. We have premium institutions in Brazil, in Colombia, in Mexico, in Argentina. And before that background, and also the digitalization and the information share within the global network is much faster. So therapy adoption of new technologies in Latin America has also, in our experience, speed up, and what we see, this is going to be continuous speeding up. Of course, the budget restrictions compared to other markets are existing. There's no question. On the other hand, we have to admit that all Latin American countries have, of course, in different regions, an important private segment of the market. And this private segment, of course, offers great opportunities to introduce new technologies that have solutions that are innovative. And sometimes it's even easier to access with these new technologies Latin America compared to the highly regulated European or US markets, where the reimbursement organization is so complex and takes sometimes, if you have a new technology, for example, in Germany, it can take you easily 3 to 4 years before you get reimbursement. Wow. You can sell it, yeah, but nobody's going to pay for it. And there, Latin America definitely offers some opportunities. And we see this trend accelerating to new technologies. So from our perspective, this is a very interesting option.
Yes, you're bringing up a very good point. I think it's because of the nature of the paternalistic systems, healthcare systems in all these countries. For example, in Colombia, you can go to the Supreme Court for diapers if you need diapers. I mean, anything is reimbursable. I mean, the system is set up in such a way that it's a constitutional right as a citizen to have access to innovative technologies. Is that's the last resource that you have to save your life. So that's probably the reason why all these countries are easier to access than many other countries around the world. All right, guys.
Takes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
perfect.
Okay. Good. So let's talk about how you guys see the region as a potential market. I mean, are you guys successfully selling in the region? I mean, do you guys see lots of growth potential in Latin America to sell your technologies?
Yeah, I can go first, and Andres, feel free to chime in. So yes, we do. We actually have very interesting and ongoing conversations with our distribution partners and end users in a variety of countries. So we have worked in Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, Panama, and there's something good ongoing in Costa Rica for us, Dominican Republic, and also before the crisis in Venezuela. Okay. So there's definitely track record there, and there is an overall excitement there within our group and company to continue growing in the region and to continue growing with the region. Okay. Especially because we believe that our solutions actually cater very well to the market, because they are kind of lean and they are not very kind of capital intensive. We have a lot of SaaS solutions around that can enable even with low budgets to get a high class solution kind of made in Germany and US. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of potential for us. And I think at the moment it's more about oftentimes educating the market, oftentimes finding the right distribution partner and working with them to actually convince the hospitals and the clients, the end users, that this is something that works, even if it's in a remote place and in all kinds of surgical environments and operating rooms.
Andres, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, as you know, we are providing solutions that allow a complete digitalization of the workflow to reduce surgical risk and improve quality. This is always highly linked to efficiency and efficiency gains, because quality and efficiency go hand in hand. If you have a complication, you have to make a re-intervention. The costs increase. It's a big problem. On the other hand, if you have a very smooth process, a very fast, let's say streamlined operation procedure, you have less risk for complication. And having said that, of course, Latin America has more increasing tenders that we are seeing for our types of solutions, because something that has been adopted as a standard in the US and in Europe for several years already has now become more and more attractive also for the institutions in Latin America, both public and private. And specifically the private institutions, of course, reflect they are very cost sensitive. They are very, let's say, driven by providing value. I mean quality, but in an effective way. And we see a lot of opportunities going on there. We have a very big reference project, for example, in Colombia, in Bogota, where private institutions have acquired our solutions for all their operating rooms in order to improve patient care. And by this means, I say that we are really looking forward to the next step. That means also to apply more and more, let's say, advanced analytics into the operating theater that will allow to further improve care. So in a nutshell, yes, in the biggest, let's say, countries like Mexico, like Colombia, like Brazil or Chile, in Argentina, we definitely see a trend in that direction. Yeah. Latin America, of course, is very variable, and you have countries, as said Bjorn before, Costa Rica or Panama, they have advanced solutions, and of course, the situation might be different in some other countries, and of course, for example, a country like Venezuela has a different focus at the moment. So it's a very heterogeneous, but the overall trend is definitely positive for our solutions.
Fantastic. I'm glad that you guys see Latin America as a very attractive region to do business. And that's the reason for the podcast. I mean, we here talk about how companies are succeeding in the region so that other companies do not repeat the same mistakes or can learn from your experience. And these translate into faster access to innovative technologies for patients in the region. So moving along here, guys, let's talk in more details about your entry into the market. How is it that you guys were able to find distributors? Let's talk about the regulatory pathway that you guys have to follow in each country. Can we elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I will take this over because Bjorn always says to me, it's a kind of headache. the regulatory pathway.
Yes.
Except
Yeah.
Chile. He loves Chile for that perspective because
Chile's
it's
open.
a very easy path.
Yes. Agree.
Yeah, of course. No, we are seeing two things for our solution, digital solutions. We have several markets where we luckily in Latin America have an exemption for the entry of the product.
Okay.
Because these countries, for example, the most prominent one is Mexico, where these kind of solutions can be implemented directly. On the other hand, of course, in Colombia, we have to deal with the INVIMA, we have to get the registration done. In Brazil, it's a very, very long process. In Argentina, we have the approval for the ANMAT as well. So yes, it's a long path. On the other hand, I definitely always, let's say, see it, and we as Caresyntax see it that way, that it's also an advantage. Because if you know how to do it well, it protects you from competition.
Totally, I agree. Yes.
Because once you're in, you can sell.
Yeah.
And everybody who wants to go has to go through that hurdle.
Exactly.
And for many companies, this hurdle, they don't have the patience, they don't have the time and the expertise to do so. So it is very crucial that you have a good partner that is driving the registration process.
Okay.
And we as Caresyntax have a mixed approach. In some countries, we are the holder of the registration ourselves.
Okay.
And we have an approved importer. In other countries where we, let's say, as a smaller company, you need to mitigate a little bit the risk and the cost.
Yeah.
So we rely on distributors to hold the registration and to do the process. This ties us to the partner, but you cannot invest everywhere.
Exactly.
And that's the path. But basically, our experience is that once you have, as a company, a good regulatory department as we have, then you provide the documents and then your partner can work. The problem is that many times the manufacturers have to do a lot of work before the local partners can proceed. And that's a little bit the path. But we see it's more an administrative, in most of the market, it's more an administrative work than a real proof of clinical, except that you work with a class 3 product, maybe that might be different. But on the other hand, typically, if you have some data, you have the documentation and the tests available, electromagnetic, safety, etc., then the access is a little bit delayed, but shouldn't be, with a good organization, a too big hurdle.
Okay. What's your classification of risk in Colombia, for example?
1.
Okay, that's what I imagine. It's just a software solution. Okay, and that's quite an advantage because it's an automatic process.
I say still.
What do you mean still?
Because because that maybe Bjorn will add some points. We are working on solutions that will go more in classification of class 2
okay.
in the future. But yeah, that currently we're one.
Okay. Yeah, class 1 and class 2A in Colombia is automatic. It's just a notification to INVIMA. In about a week, you should get your registration certificate. I'm surprised about what you said about Mexico. You said we were able to go direct in Mexico. It means that you didn't have to go through COFEPRIS approval or anything?
For this type of product that we have in digitization, there is an exemption for this product.
Oh, I see. Excellent. Very good. All right. So
that's not only
luckily.
Luckily, that's not only also in Latin America. It's also in other countries where usually you have larger barriers to entry. And again, it goes back to the solution being an IT solution, but also the solution being something that really helps with the efficiency, the cost, the quality. So the regulators are quite keen actually to get this solution installed because it helps them reduce the overall burden of healthcare expenditures as opposed to, the latest and greatest pacemaker that may be or may not be better than the previous one, but costs triple.
Good point. Yeah, good point. In terms of competition, who else is in this space in Latin America? Chinese companies, American companies? I mean, who are the players in Latin America?
Yeah, I think, I can start and Andrés, you can weigh in. I think that we do see a similar competition than in Europe. So it's definitely competitors of ours that we see in Europe as well are in Latin America as well. So European companies, US companies.
Okay.
Mindray is also quite strong in Latin America.
Okay.
But they're also we don't really have competitors because we are also a supplier to most big OEMs. So if you're talking about Karl Storz or Getinge Maquet or Mindray, with them we have kind of partnerships. Sometimes we also compete because they use a different solution provider from ours in different regions. But in general, the competitive landscape is not too different. There are in Brazil, when I was there, I saw some homemade solutions.
Oh, really? Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. So they developed actually themselves because of the high barriers, efficiency and IT integration solutions that were quite sophisticated that I saw there. But other than that, there's not a lot of local competition. It's more so the same guys that are around the table than in Europe or in the US.
Okay. Talking about Brazil, Brazil is a unique case in Latin America. I will say when I was working for Lucent Technologies and Nortel, doing business all over the region, I was in charge of a technical support department. We were providing support for high complex networks of the largest providers all over the region. And I was quite impressed with the level of engineering in Brazil. I mean, the quality of these guys were similar to the ones in the US. So I was Brazil, Mexico second, Argentina third. But Brazilians had their own protocols, their own developments. I mean, quite impressive. And they have a very solid medical device industry, homegrown industry because of the protective nature of the market, and they export to many countries around the world. Yeah.
Yes.
So guys, let's talk about distributors. How is it that you guys were able to find distributors in the region? What type of distributors are ideal for this type of products?
Well, let's say that depends a little bit on the maturity of the market. Why do we say that? Because at the beginning, digitalization has also been linked to infrastructure.
Okay.
So the companies who provide the equipment for the operating theater itself, tables, pendants, walls constructions, gases, all these companies are, let's say, tied to this kind of business. And typically in Latin America still, the digitalization of the operating theaters is included in these kind of tender processes.
Okay.
So having said that, it was clear for us that we need to look for strong partners who have a good footprint in the infrastructure business. Mm-hmm. And now, as the nature of our product is changing, because we are moving more and more to additional pure software added value solutions that are vendor neutral and allow an interaction with the clinical hospital IT infrastructure across the different vendors. Mm-hmm. We are now more and more expanding to partner with software IT companies. Yeah? But our starting point and footprint has been that one. And now we have an established network of partners in the infrastructure business, and we're building up an additional network and step in the hospital IT software distribution and provision business. Yeah.
All right. Very good.
And typically we are looking, if we qualify a distributor, we look for a strategic fit. So that means a complementarity of products. We think that this is a crucial point that both Bjorn and I always in all the territories try to follow. So if somebody is selling urological products at the moment, the link is not so strong. While if somebody is selling a particular solution, electronic medical record, quality assurance, software products, these companies are, let's say, already in that space and they have already a footprint, and then they are interesting for.
In what countries would you say that you are seeing the most complex or sophisticated distributors in the region?
I think there is a very big particularity. If you, let's say, in Mexico, you have the servicios integrados.
Okay.
So that's, of course, massive, huge companies who have a very different footprint than in the other areas, I would say, except very few territories then of the world. Companies that provide and sell the complete solution with all the participants and bundle everything in. This is something very particular.
Okay.
Which is also different, and it's important to understand that very diligently. If you don't understand that, you come up with an innovative product and you will not sell anything. Yeah. And of course, in the other areas, I would say, of course, you have amazing distributors in Brazil due to the size, and you have also very good and professional distributors in Argentina. If they have been successful surviving several devaluations and bankruptcies of the country, then they are very strong. I don't know. That's a little bit the take from our side.
Okay. Fortunately, you guys don't have to deal with importation processes and shipments and things of that nature. I think software is really an advantage over dealing with boxes shipping across borders, and that's usually a question that I ask my guests here on the podcast, because that's always an issue. The other question that I usually ask my guests is about corruption and bribery in Latin America. What's your perception of that in the region? Have you guys?
We are losing you, or
no? I'm here. Me? I'm here.
No, I think Julio, there was a.
I'm here. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We're losing you.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Connection.
Can you guys hear me?
Now again.
Okay. Good. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
Can you please repeat?
Yes. The next question is about corruption and bribery in Latin America. What's your perception about this in the region? Have you guys been involved with some situations where you have to take a step back or get away from the deal or something because there's corruption involved, government corruption or distributor or something?
I think I understood your question. The connection is not very good. Okay. It was about corruption and bribery with the region. So I can tell you that we have not experienced or faced at any point in time any of this kind of activity. Mm-hmm. And our company and our partners have very, very high compliance standards. We're US-based company, and so we do not tolerate any activity of this kind from our partners or anybody that would potentially do that. And we haven't actually seen anything like that.
Very good, very good. I mean, it's just your company, Caresyntax, is in the tender space. I guess your distributor have to get involved with government tenders and things of that nature, and things may happen in that in that game. So I'm very glad to hear that you guys haven't found any of those situations. All right. So the next question that I have is about the Pacific Alliance. What do you guys see happening in the integration of Colombia, Mexico, Peru, and Chile? Are you guys familiar with the Pacific Alliance?
Yes, we are. Of course, we know about that project. However, we're observing that at the given time. It's a little bit like the Cono Sur experience, where, of course, formally there is a Cono Sur, but if you really want to ship the products from A to B, what happens to us? You still find yourself in a very, very it has nothing to do with the processes in the European Union to ship a product from Italy to Germany. Yeah. So de facto, this has not been for us so far of impact, but we would be interested to hear your state of that, and then maybe comment on that for our particular business.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Mercosur hasn't really developed or hasn't really been taking the direction that was originally envisioned, and it hasn't really it hasn't really become an integration force in the region, which is something badly needed in Latin America. And even President Clinton in the US tried with ALCA to integrate the region somehow. But it looks like the Pacific Alliance is the first initiative, the first trade bloc that is OECD supported and has Colombia, Mexico, Peru, and Chile as OECD countries, and that have international guidelines and policies of best practices. And that is really becoming a trade bloc of almost 230 million people with that means it's a sizable population that will compete with other areas in the world. And also the integration of these four countries will make it a lot easier for medical technology companies to do business in Latin America, because one thing in the agenda, they already started doing this, is to integrate the regulatory system of the four countries. And Chile is now changing. It will change very soon. There is a new project, there is a new bill in Chile's Congress to regulate medical technologies so that they are similar to the other countries, Peru, Mexico, and Colombia. So it is definitely a force that will benefit the medical technology business in Latin America. So I was just curious about your take on it and what you knew about that initiative. All right. So, and that will lead me to my next question before the end of the podcast here, interview. What would you say to the CEO? This is probably a question more for Bjorn. What would you say to the CEO of European or American medical device company or medical technology company that is looking at Latin America as a place to do business?
So I think it's definitely worthwhile to analyze the market first and to speak to knowledgeable people about the potential the demand before kind of engaging. And that's what we did as well on trade fairs and visits. And then I think it's, for a number of reasons, it's an interesting space, specifically if you have something that is not, as hard to register as a new product. Yeah. So it really depends on the level of the medical device grade, so to say, of your solution. But then it's a very interesting place to do business. It's definitely not always straightforward. So you need to have basically and find very good partners and convince them to work with you. And I think there's been the really great job that Andrés and our team have done, that they found really the best partners for us. And so that's been very helpful. And in fact, we're working, for example, with Draeger a lot in Latin America. And, they liked us so much in the work that we did in Latin America that we're now looking at more and global and US focused and centric collaborations. So it's been from that perspective also a big strategic asset and strategic value to the company. So definitely worthwhile, definitely very interesting market. And I think, dealing with the local culture and being there and having good times is also something that you can appreciate if you have the chance to do so.
Would you say that it's a fun place to do business? I mean, do you like the people, the culture, the travel?
I obviously love the people and the culture, because I've been there a lot, and I go back there quite a bit, both for personal and business reasons now. I think it's great that I can combine both. My visit to the Brazilian hospitals was serendipitously around the time of the carnival. So that was, of course, an accident. But so there's a lot of good things to combine. The same with Mexico. Whenever we went there, we also had a chance to go to some maybe visit some old friends or go to some nice places. So I think it's a perfect place to combine the both. Yeah. And people are very open, very hospitable, very friendly. You have to, of course, bring some patience in some places, but I think that's the case almost everywhere in one shape or form.
Okay. And Andrés, do you have anything to add? I mean, what are your words of wisdom for the CEO of a medical technology company who is looking to do business in Latin America?
I think the important thing is to do a good planning where you're going to have a good and a fast market access. And I think the combination of regulatory and reimbursement and local partner is the triangle that you need to analyze very well. In the past, as I said, there are countries like Colombia for our products or Chile where you have a faster path, and you have private institutions a lot in Colombia. So the value proposition to the hospitals is very particular compared to Chile, where most of the business, for example, is public. Yes. So you need to take this into consideration, make a good plan, and then segment in a segmented approach, start in parallel. That's what I would recommend. For example, start the registration, for example, for Brazil. It's the most interesting market, but it will take you easily 1 to 2 years to get to the market. Yeah. So you have to start working in others at the beginning. Start the process from the regulatory part, but the business starts in other markets. That would be my take, because then you have successes, motivation, and financing return of investment to go into the bigger markets later, like Mexico or like Brazil, that are typically from a regulatory point of view, except for our product now, but normally the COFEPRIS is a long process. And therefore that would be my take for the people. But once there is a good plan, there is definitely opportunity. And the last thing, I think, good follow-up. With it. If you have a technical complex product, you might consider to put a local person into the territory that supports your distributor.
Oh, okay.
Or having a good interface in partner that do this on a consultancy basis, that really follow up your distributor and can do some local activities, because distributors sell a lot of products and you need to keep the focus for your product.
That's a great point, Andres. That's a great point. That's what I call the hybrid approach, where versus a passive, just let the distributor do their magic. That doesn't always work. So having an hybrid approach where you have somebody in country or in the region constantly working with the distributor who knows the market better than the distributor, that can guide and work alongside the distributor and support the distributor from the manufacturer's point of view. I think that's the best strategy if the company has the resources for that. I mean, not all companies can afford that. All right, and the last question that I have here is more for you, Andres, since you have experience after reading your bio. I mean, you've done business everywhere. What would you say is the main advantage of Latin America versus Asia versus the Middle East versus other regions, or how does it compare in terms of doing business and selling devices or technologies?
I think, as I said at the initial part of the presentation, I think the reimbursement topic for the private segment is a big advantage strategically for innovative technologies. And you have a kind of, let's say, elite that has a lot of resources available to pay and is used to pay for their own health. If you go to Europe, for example, even you have a lot of acquisition power, the most of the people, they are not willing to pay for their insurance because they are used that the insurance company is paying for their health. Sorry, for their health, not for the insurance. Yeah. And in Latin America, there is, for innovative technologies, definitely an interesting spot. The second point that I see as a huge advantage is the regional clustering. Latin America has territories and cities that are as big as countries in terms of people. If you look to Sao Paulo, you have a let's say 100 kilometer diameter where there are living 25 million people.
Yes.
You would need to travel through whole Germany, and Germany is very populated, but you need to travel 1,000 kilometers to cover that. So that means from a regional structuring, this is very attractive. You have that also in Asia. Huh? This you also have in Asia. But I think the mentality for us in Europe, the mentality of the Latin American people is closer to us than the Asian one.
Yeah, there's a cultural similarity. Yeah.
Cultural similarity. So that is definitely, this would be my takes. I don't know, Bjorn, what would be your, because you have definitely a huge experience and bigger than mine in Asia. What would be your take on that?
No, I tend to agree with you, Andres. I think, every region has its specifics. Obviously, Asia is a massive growth region as well, with a lot of interesting dynamics ongoing. So it's not really comparable across the board, but for sure we have grouped also internally in our company the markets according to the development of the infrastructure. And as I mentioned in the beginning, actually sometimes if there's less infrastructure, it's more interesting for us because we can bring that software element in. So I think across the board we think there's regions that are definitely less interesting than Latin America, but of course there's also our core markets in Europe and the United States where we have most of our resources and the technology hubs and our clients centered.
Okay. All right, guys. We are close to the end of the show. Thank you so much for being here. I think the conversation was fascinating from the perspective of listeners, and from my own perspective, I learned a few things that I didn't know before. So it's always satisfying to be acquainted with people of your caliber who are successfully doing business in Latin America. So thank you again, and I look forward to somehow connecting again.
Thank you, Julio. It was a pleasure to be on the show, and good luck with everything. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, Bjorn. Hey, Andres. Bye-bye, guys.
Muchas gracias, Julio.
Muchas gracias.